Hello class, I'm gonna talk about the main themes in the novel SAB, which for me are probably slavery and love. Talking about slavery, the story is about a slave actually who is actually the main character and is in love with the daughter of his master, who is like like this white and beautiful girl, which of course in this case is like an unreachable goal for the main character, who is a slave obviously. And throughout the story we see a lot of stereotypes in this novel. So the beautiful girl who is like a princess, and the only thing he thinks is about like love and getting married. Also Prince Charming comes around, and as I said, just a bunch of stereotypes in this novel. So going back to slavery, like throughout the story, the author describes how terrible life was for slaves in Cuba during the 19th century. So it's interesting because it talks about how people were treated differently based on their social status. So one of the ideas we should take away from this novel is looking at things from different perspectives. I think Avellana did a really good job on developing the SAB, as a main character, because throughout his voice, she was able to make some really good critiques on slavery and show the reader how was life and society through a slave point of view. As already mentioned, there are many stereotypes in this story that even the characters in the story get fooled by these stereotypes. Just like in the first chapter, we see Enrique, which is the perfect guy who believed that SAB he didn't think SAB was an actual slave. I mean, just the way he talked. So meaning the stereotype of a slave was someone who didn't have any education at all. So let's see. What was a scene of or something that was particularly meaningful for me? I guess for me the scene in which Martina talks about like all the good things SAB made for her and his grandson Luis was very emotional, because it was very touching that someone who did not have much, who had pretty much anything like SAB, was like really kind and generous with other people. So I guess that was a really emotional scene. Why is it important to read this book? I mean, I don't read that much, but I think it is important to read this book because it helps you understand many things that still applies to the society, like things like discrimination and gender inequality. And what is a good thing I got out of this reading? Personally, I like to learn about history and things like that. So for me, learning about the historical context in which this book was written was really helpful. Like it helped me understand things like where so many dark-skinned people in the Caribbean and countries like Haiti, Cuba, Brazil, all that stuff, and also learn about how society worked back in the days. So it seems that slavery was a very huge industry back then.